All right, so welcome back to my channel. My name is Justin. I'm joined with three other people who are big card collectors. And as we all know, the whole point of this video is going to be talking about the crazy cards hobby, not just sports, but Pokemon and all the other cards. So I'm joined by three others, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Some of them are card shop owners, so they're going to say that, and they're going to share their Twitter handles. So Andrew, do you want to start with your like who you are, where you're from, if you have a card shop, and your Twitter handle?
You bet. I'm Andrew Sigerson out of Omaha, Nebraska. I'm actually a lawyer, and you're in my law office with the picture behind me. My Twitter handle is Big Poppy34. Big David Ortiz collector, just a large collector, been in the hobby for 30 years. A lot of history and a pretty large collection.
All right, so next, Ivan, a lot of you will probably recognize his Twitter handle when he does say it, but you want to go and say who you are, your Twitter handle, and if you have a card shop and all that stuff.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Justin, for having me on today. My name is Ivan Lovegren, but I'm known to most in the hobby community as Watch the Breaks, which is a bit of a misnomer because I don't actually do breaks. I made a YouTube show many years ago that was a comedy called The Breaks. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and I do a lot of wheeling and dealing from my home, but no official card shop. And happy to be on today.
All right, and I don't know who the name, I didn't see the name of who's next, but do you
Rex.
Rex, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Rex Gocher. I'm from the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan. I'm here at the shop, so pardon the background noise. I'll mute it now so you don't hear it. Thanks.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about cards and the craze. So I have a couple topics that we're going to be discussing. I'm just going to say that a lot of the stuff I want to say, but I'm not going to say because I'll probably get a lot of hate. And a lot of stuff I've kept my mouth shut on Twitter because of the hate that I would probably get. So I'm going to try to keep it pretty mellow-headed, especially with my own opinion. But the first topic is, the first thing I'm going to ask is, why are things so crazy all of a sudden? Like, we've seen the pandemic and this and that. Is there anything else besides the pandemic? We know a lot of famous people are getting involved now. Is there anything that you noticed or want to mention that probably isn't out there? And like, why is this all of a sudden? What caused it? Angie, do you want to go?
Sure. I think there's a wide variety of things, Justin, that have driven this market. But I think we also just want to have some context, which is really the market's been moving slowly up for a decade, if not longer. And it really started to take off probably around 3 years ago. We started to see a trend started to move the needle. And then last year just accelerated it. So I think there's a lot of reasons. I actually think the pandemic is low on the list. I think a lot of the drive has to do with, one, you've got a population my age or so that is back in nostalgia, sees this as an alternative asset class, and is in their highest earning years. So they have the ability financially to buy the things they want. And then you add that to somebody like a Gary Vaynerchuk, who has millions of followers that automatically follow what he does. And it doesn't take much for him to move the needle to get the guys that were buying sneakers to jump on the side of the cards. And then finally, I think you have just kind of the intersection of social media and popular famous people deciding this is an interesting alternative asset class, like art might have been 2 decades ago, that they'd like to show off. I've got a Michael Jordan 86, 87 Fleer that I want to show my friends versus showing I've got a Picasso. So I think there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I was gonna, because I know the Gary V and the whole Vegas Dave thing has been talked about. I know for me, it was one of the topics that I had written down. But for me, I think the biggest thing is people are seeing that Mike Trout rookie cards, and the Mike Trout one-of-one selling for $4 million, and I think that it was like people are saying that's like, holy shit, this is a money thing I can make. And everyone's trying to find that next big Mike Trout, as we've seen with the Wander Francos, the Dominguez. People are comparing that to the Mike Trout that sold for $4 million. So people are now, I think, looking at that. Ivan, do you have anything you want to say about why things are so crazy, and how do you feel about the card craze?
Well, so I got back into collecting around 2011. It was more football than baseball, though, so of course I missed out. More football than baseball, more baseball than basketball. So I'm still a poor collector. That said, when I got back in, I was like, what happened? Everybody collected when I was a kid. Now, not everybody cared as much as I did on my block, but everybody collected. Everybody bought packs. You could find packs everywhere. And so just thinking back 10 years, like putting context on it, like Andrew said, well, was it too far behind? Should it have been much higher? And as publicity has happened, when was the last, tell me a time between 2011 and 2016 that a professional athlete tweeted about their card or posted to Instagram or Facebook, because that probably had the biggest following back then, or a celebrity on the level of Gary Vee or, now Mark Cuban talking about collectibles. You've got one of the biggest VC firms, Mark Suster and Greg Bettinelli, guys that created Salesforce, and are followed so high in the entrepreneur community, and they're investing in trading card, avenues. So I think that part of it's the marketing, part of it's the seeing the dollars also, but then another part is that a lot of us enjoy collecting. And this is I'll get my big speech out right now. My biggest thing when people hate flippers or hate people that are just new to the hobby because they see dollar signs is everybody starts somewhere. And just this morning, I had a private conversation on Twitter with a collector who reached out and said, yeah, I came in because I found some old cards and I found out one of them was worth $40 and I thought, this is cool, I can make money. And now I'm building a PC of through the mail autographs. Like, you got to get hooked somehow. And honestly, getting hooked by making some money gives you money to spend building the hobby side. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that because, like, I'll sell stuff to buy PC items, but it's people that say they PC items, but yeah, all they do is flip those. So it's like, do you really PC that item? Because to me, a PC is something that you collect and don't sell, and that you just want to have because you enjoy collecting. So that's kind of where my head is at with the whole PC collecting. And like, I don't want like people that sell to sell. If you're collecting a PC item, I have no issue with, because I do the same thing too. If I'm gonna get rid of something, I'm gonna get rid of it because I don't want it, but I want something that I want. So it's kind of like my way of trying to make money to buy what I want. So that's kind of that's my debate with it. But Rex, do you have any thoughts on why things are so crazy and in general about the hobby that you want to say?
I do. I mean, I would certainly agree with what the others have said. The other thing I think that we need to really consider and understand, and I'm sure we probably do, is the gambling aspect of it. I mean, in reality, we've reached a point in the hobby and as far as collectors and investors, whatever we want to call ourselves, where it's a perfect storm of the gambling, investing, and collecting all coming together to really create this kind of excitement. And the card makers have been very smart about the products that they're producing and manufacturing and marketing to those three elements, if you will. And I think people are really starting to figure out, if you look at sports gambling as a whole, not that sports cards is directly sports gambling. There are parts of it, I think, that are akin to it. But sports gambling as a whole has grown exponentially, especially since it's been legalized. And I think that people are starting to really figure out that this is perhaps a smarter way to put their money and still follow and cheer for the players that they love.
Also, another two topics that have come up on Twitter. I know I've kind of tweeted about it many times. It's the whole cards and stock market relation. And like you said, the whole gambling thing, where I've come out and said, when you're buying sport cards, you're ultimately gambling, which Rex seemed to agree there. And then it's like, when I see people, I don't know, like, it's not my thing. If you're going to sell a card for 25 cents, why not just trade it to somebody or like give it away at that price? Like, why try to make every 25 cents to make your money back? And just like, that's kind of where my frustration is. It's like, you're selling a card for 25 cents. Is it really worth you getting 25 cents when you can like give it to somebody else who might enjoy it? So that's where my head is at. If you're selling a car for 20, 30, 40 bucks, yeah, sell it. Don't just whatever. But like, that's kind of where my thing is at with the whole seeing everybody try to sell like 25 cents, $1, $1.50. I get you're trying to make your money back, but it's like, don't go into buying a box not expecting to lose. Like, if you're going to buy a box, expect to lose, because that's what's going to most likely happen 80% of the time. So any thoughts on that?
I do see, I do see a lot of comments occasionally with regard to that. And I think that we have to remember that the getting your money back out of a box has never been a guarantee. So if you're really looking at it, from that perspective, and yeah, prices of boxes and packs have really gone up, especially in the last year and a half. But again, like I said, it's never been a guarantee, and it's certainly not been an immediate guarantee. I mean, you could buy a box of Baume and Chrome, and some of those cards might not pay off for 2-3 years.
That's
I think that's just normal.
That's where my frustration is, where I see people like going in and expecting, like, people are like, oh yeah, I didn't hit. It's like, did you really expect to hit? Like, so what, you didn't hit? Like, don't buy a box if you're expecting to hit every single time, because you're not. Like, when I go to my Walmart, I'm going because I want to open something. I'm not going to make money. So I think if people change the mind frame, it might be that much more enjoyable. Ivan or Andrew, any comments on any of that stuff?
Well, I would say, that, we talk about sports gambling, but, speculating in the hobby has always been part of the hobby. I remember when I was, I go back a ways. I go back to the mid 80s when I was collecting. I vividly remember, Rex, I bet you do too. I vividly remember paying $5 to $20 a pack for a 1990 Leaf, trying to pull the Frank Thomas or the Sammy Sosa. That was speculation. And 2018, when that update product came out and Soto and Acuna were in there, and they had a Black Friday sale where you could buy a jumbo case for $500. I was loading up because I thought those guys were going to be pretty good. Now, I have a ton of their stuff. I've bought a ton of PSA 10 Soto and Acuna update rookie cards, but I was spending $25 a piece. And I've never sold any because I pretend to be an investor, but I'd almost never sell anything. But, that's speculating and gambling. It's just saying I'm betting on this young player. It's hard to open a new Series 1 jumbo box right now when they're $350. But if you look at the quality of the rookies in it and you look at the checklist, it's not that bad of a deal, even if you don't make a big hit.
But how long are you waiting for? 5 to 10 years on these cards? Like
No, not at all. Not at all. I can actually, I'd stare at comps all day long because I don't have a life, and I don't know how it works, but my financial clients are happy still, so I guess it's okay. The Alec Baume. So on release week, Alec Baume had a black, which I believe are numbered to 60 or 70, that was selling for over $500. And I said, I think that's a little ridiculous. And I like Alec Baume because guess what? He's from my hometown, which is also Andrew's hometown, Omaha, Nebraska. So I like the guy. I thought it was ridiculous though. But that's in those packs. Fast forward 3 weeks later, it's selling for 800 plus. So it's not necessarily
that's also the market now too. Everything is going up and up and up.
Well, not everything's going up, but a lot of things are going up. So you can do those tops flagship flips in the short term.
But what about the standard base that are $5, $10?
But here's the thing with that is that if you go back 10 years, when a box was what, $60, right? Your biggest rookie from that box was $4 or $5, right? So there's actually, arguably, if you're pulling some $20 rookies now and the price is 4 times higher for the box, I've been stunned. That's one very small example, but I encourage anybody watching this, go out and do the comps and see what the percentage average is across multiple products. And I'll bet you anything, the average return on a box of cards is about 1/8. But it's the fact that there's those big ones that either fully fulfill it or shoot way beyond it. But the ratio has actually held pretty steady. I'd love to see examples that are not, believe me. That's what I love is data. So if you have examples that are very clearly not, please tweet me at Watch the Breaks. But the ratios of cost to value are very close, as I see it, to what I saw 4 years ago when I was doing this.
So you're saying these rookie cards that we're getting out of Series 1 in 2021, like the Baumes, like the Mountcastle, like the Adeles, you think these $5 cards in the next year are going to be $30, $40, $50 cards?
Well, the great thing to look at there, Justin, go look at Bobby Dahlbeck's cards in the last week. He's hit 3 home runs in the first week of spring training. His stuff is all doubled.
I actually tweeted that out. I said, are people going to, like, I'm pretty sure I put out a tweet that said, does spring training really have an impact on how people are going to invest in cards? And a lot of people say yes. So it's like, that comment didn't surprise me. I only follow the Jays and stuff, but what you were saying there, I was actually in relation to a tweet that said, will things double? But then if he makes it to the big leagues, shits the bed for a month and gets sent back down, his cards go back down.
As
Yeah.
a large collector of Michael Chavis, I have lived that. Yes, I know. I bought Ivan's 1 of 1 2 years ago, Ivan?
So the irony is that it may be at a loss for you right now, but you bought it for me at a loss for me. So we collectively watched that card go down. But on the flip side, like that, yeah, that can happen. You can lose. The guy could also come up and have a stellar career. You don't know. There's always that risk.
If I'd have sold that Chavis when he hit 3 bombs against the Yankees in the London series last year, I'd have made a fortune.
And that's what, 1 week worth of games kind of thing?
Right.
I see that Rex, are you back there? Oh man. I wanted to ask Rex's opinion on this since he runs a card shop, like what he sees about the ratio between boxes to hits. Because I think that that's not talked about enough, that's very similar still. But Justin, another thing that you said about like prices rising, well, that's why the other side of it is that you have to hopefully have a little collectability. I like to think Andrew and I can laugh because Andrew is a Michael Chavis Boston Red Sox fan, and he's had plenty of other wins in his collection, so he's still got a card that he loves. There's Rex.
Like for me, any Blue Jay that I hit, I'm happy because that's what I collect. Like if Bo Bichette shit the bed tomorrow, I would still be happy spending $140 on a card if it went down to 20 because I love Bo Bichette. I've met the guy in person and like I just have a really high feel like I have a connection to him. So like that's my thing. Like yeah, if I'm gonna buy a card, I'm not. Yeah, maybe I feel like a shit. Like oh shit, I lost money, but if I was buying a card thinking I'm trying to make money, then I don't really think you can do that. I think no matter what you do in this hobby, you can't go in trying to make money because you're not going to. And a lot of people buy a card, realize that they might have lost, but they try to overprice the card because they don't want to lose. So it's like they try to sell it for more than they want because they don't want to lose. So it's like that's why the hobby keeps going up and up and up because everyone's always trying to make money. So it's continuously going up because nobody wants to lose when really the card's not worth maybe its value and stuff.
Oh, trust me, we're losing every day. We just don't talk about it anywhere near as much.
Rex is back, Ivan.
Rex, hey,
Yeah.
I wanted to actually ask your opinion and experience on this as we were talking about like the last decade. I threw out to Justin that one thing I've seen is, yes, box prices have been rising, but the ratio of value in a box to what it is today is still very similar to what it used to be. A $20 Hoops rookie was a $2 Hoops rookie 4 years ago when boxes were 8 times cheaper. So I'm curious, though, since you've been seeing it for years in the actual wax and in the behavior of consumers and the packouts, what do you see as that value, like on average? Obviously, there's the big giant hits that level it off, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the value is certainly there in today's market. I mean, clearly, when we see the kind of values that, you can, I mean, every day in the shop, we see somebody with a big hit. Just this week alone, football seems to be what's driving it. And, we've got guys that are open $700, optic choice boxes with 6 cards in it. And then, they take it home and they open it and they pull up black gold Justin Herbert. That's probably a $5,000 card. So, I mean, there's those hits, obviously, the big, huge ones. But also, again, I mean, I think it goes back to the understanding that not every single set and not every single box is going to be an immediate 100% or 10x or 100x return on your money. Let's take Top Series 1, 2021 Top Series 1 loaded with rookies, as everybody talks about this year. But realistically, those rookies have yet to prove themselves. And I think that when they do, that's when you'll really start to see some of the values. The Joe Adells, the Joey Barts, I mean, all those guys that are at Dylan Carlson, those guys that are in that class this year, those guys are going to hit. Basketball is a little bit different because we've seen basketball and football, those markets play out a little bit more like what maybe a fantasy league might behave like, whereas performance on the court or on the field right at that moment impacts the price. So those are things that you got to pay a little bit closer attention to. I do think basketball has leveled out a little bit with that, and we're not seeing these huge spikes, these huge bowl, one scrimmage type spikes that we saw last year.
How does hockey compare to all those? So because basically you're saying that baseball is long term, football and basketball are short term, like jumps in prices. How does hockey compare?
Admittedly, I'm not as big of an expert on hockey because the hockey market is not one of our strongest markets here in this area. But from what we see here, at least, hockey is primarily driven by the stars and the Hall of Famers. So I don't know that, the hockey market reacts like basketball. I would say it's probably more akin to baseball. The big chase, was Alex Lafreniere from this year's season, from the first year's release, the Series 1 release. And that still seems to be a big chase. There is Series 2. I'm sorry?
He's not performing right now, so have you seen a decline?
Correct. We haven't seen a lot of that, again, because we don't do a lot of hockey business here. There is a new chase, I understand, in Series 2. There's another rookie that's coming out. Perhaps you guys know the name better than I do. Who's everybody looking for in Series 2 coming up? Do you know?
Series 2 is actually more of a it's more of a like Topps flagships this year sort of scenario. From what I get, there's like 4 or 5 really good guys that also could pop. Sometimes there's really good guys that you also know will just always be really good guys.
Hockey guys
I don't know the exact names. I went through the list 2 weeks ago with a bunch of people on my Twitter, and they said like, "Oh, these are the guys." When it comes to hockey, I am very segmented. I know my LA Kings. There's just too many sports out there. So that said, the LA Kings do have an incredible guy coming up, Quentin Byfield.
Yeah, local guy. He's actually he's a half hour from me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he's up in Newmarket and I'm in Vaughan, so he's like a half hour north of where I'm from.
So we're both going to be ruining the market on those cards. So don't even try to buy them because
I'm a Leaf guy. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Nick Robertson are my guys. Sandin, and I know Matthews and Marner are like up there, and Matthews is close to McDavid level apparently now. So
yeah. So that said, Byfield will probably carry next year's Series 1, assuming he gets the playing time. But Rex, I am hearing. So it was kind of like.
Dylan Cousins of Buffalo in Series 2?
Yes, he is. That's one of the names. I remember because he's also a baseball player. So Dylan Cousins is one of those guys. There's probably.
Okay. We have 10 minutes, so I'm just going to cut out and then we'll log back in.
Cut the hockey. Cut the hockey.
All right. So anything else to be said?
Well, I was just going to real quick just note, I think Ivan and Rex would probably agree with me. There's incredible inefficiencies in the market still. There's incredible opportunities. If you're trying to, if you're an investor and you're looking for areas to make money, there is just an incredible amount of places. Again, I go in a mindset of say, okay, there's some inefficiencies here. Again, I don't ever sell, so it's kind of a on paper only. But I tweeted yesterday about how, Luka has got 2018 Prism cards, PSA 10s. There's 16,000 of those, and they run about $1,300 a piece. Then there's the red, white, and blue version of that card, which there are 1,000 of, and those sell, at least the last one I bought, for $1,700. So for a few $100s more, you can get a card that there's 1/16 the supply of potentially one of the greatest players in NBA history if he doesn't get hurt. And so that's an inefficiency. That card should be at least double or triple what the base Prism card is worth, and I think eventually it will be, but it's out there. Acuna is another one. Acuna base Topps 18 update PSA 10s are about $225, $250. Tatis is $350. Soto's $325. Acuna jumps out and hits 3 home runs in the first week. That's going to pop to $350, $400 overnight. So there's just some real interesting inefficiencies in the market.
We like Acuna, Soto, Tatis. We all know those have popped. Is there any rookies that you guys are thinking will pop up to that level since, I guess, in the 2020 year, in this 2021? Because I'm reading Bichette. That's kind of seems to be the hot thing. It was the Luis Robert, but I've been seeing all over the Bichette's going to pop like to them. So I don't know what you guys are.
Both Bichette and Robert were big chases last year. especially their chrome cards, the chrome refractors, and that still continues. I think there's a lot of high expectation for both of those guys. Tatis, again, Soto, Acuna, those are certainly the big names right now. But I'm also seeing a lot of people really back on the Pete Alonso and the Vlad Guerrero Jr. Bandwagons right now. So I think those were people, and I think one of the things that we have to really consider was that shortened season is really not exactly representative of what these guys may or may not be able to do. So there's still a lot of unknown for all of these guys that we're talking about, including Tatis, Acuna, and Soto. We think we know what their, trajectory is, but realistically, they're not locks for the Hall of Fame yet. So we shouldn't be treating them like they are necessarily.
Yeah, and just going off the Vlad train, being a local guy and seeing Vlad, the issue with him is his weight, and he's dropped 40 pounds. I don't know how much Vlad you've seen on TV or news-wise, but we get a lot of Vlad. He's like one of our biggest in the news, him and all that. But he's definitely looked good. He did, I think, summer ball in the Dominican, and he really tore it up. He's moving well. He'll probably be at third, he'll probably be at first DH with Tellez. But he does seem to be moving well. And the weight drop definitely, I think, is a big thing that I don't know how much you guys get, but being a local guy, Toronto, and getting a lot of Vlad media, I do see a lot of hype and legit hype on him, and people getting back on it. I'm not surprised.
Well, even some guys that haven't really actually hit the majors yet. Wander Franco, of course, he hit a bomb the other day, and everybody was all over that. So everybody's back on his bandwagon again. I mean, the number one prospect in baseball still, and I think people are anxious to see him hit the major league field. And if he ends up in Series 2 or Update this year, I think you'll see people going wild for those sets as well.
Did you guys see the spike in Ohtani's cards after he cleared the batter's eye the other night? I mean, spike.
Yeah. That's actually good to hear, because we were pretty big on Ohtani last year, which didn't pay out too well. So we're still sitting on quite a few of those. So that's good news.
Yeah, so moving on, this whole idea of overpriced boxes and cards, and then do you think we've hit a peak? And when do you think it could go back down, if it will go back down?
Ivan, you take it.
I mean, honestly, from my day job, I don't think you ever know when. I think you'll get three different answers if you ask. You probably will get three different answers on this call alone. I think there's still room to go up, personally. That's just me.
And if it will go down, and do you have a prediction on when you think it might go down, or you just?
No, because the metric for this is how many people are buying. Are more people buying than yesterday? Are less people buying than yesterday?
More people are buying.
Yeah. So as we continue to have, has everybody that Deshaun Watson can reach bought a pack of cards? Well, in sales, the average sales message needs to be sent 7 times. You need to hear 7 times, hey, you need this, before you'll actually buy it. So if Deshaun Watson posted once to his Instagram, there may be 7 or 8% adoption from that of his followers saying, oh, I need this. If he posts 6 more times, by that 7th time, there's going to be mass adoption from his followers, just as one example. So how many other celebrities out there may do this? How many other influencers and voices may do this? And how many times will they do it? Could just continue to grow the hobby. On the other hand, if they all stop and start tweeting about NFTs or things like that, who knows?
I would, just to piggyback on what I would say, and I would agree. I think there's plenty of room to grow with the price of boxes. I don't think we've reached a peak yet. I think without getting into too many details, I think some of the card manufacturers are just now catching up to wholesale prices that are really more reflective of true current market conditions. And I don't think you guys have seen that hit hobby shops and retail stores necessarily yet, but I think that's just around the corner.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think we got a long way to go. It's hard to predict it properly. There's no way demand is supply has come even close to catch up with demand. We won't hit that level until I can walk into Walmart and buy a Series 1 blaster. And I think we're a long ways off from that. But also, It's hard to quantify this with other than anecdotally, but there is so much more money that's coming into the hobby. And granted, they're buying some of the trophy higher end stuff, no question about it. But I mean, I'm a lawyer. I work with primarily high net worth people, and I talk about collectibles. I have high net worth people saying, hey, what if I give you $250,000? Will you go build me a card portfolio? I mean, you never heard that until now. And so you just hear that, and I really think we've crossed a threshold where it is an alternative investment asset class. And if it does that, if that's truly true, it's got so much more room to run. And we'll have dips. We'll go up and down a little bit. Basketball just did that in the fall.
So it is like the stock market.
Came right back. What's that, Justin?
So the card market is comparable to what you would say the stock market is.
Yeah, as an investment class, it doesn't act the same. We shouldn't treat it the same. But as a class in terms of a trajectory, I'd say yes.
Do you think Pokemon cards will have the same effect like sports cards?
Yes. The Asian market drives that collection. And, and U.S. has some part of it, but we've barely even tapped the Asian market, and that is a huge driver.
So you still think there's like that still has a high peak?
Oh, I think that's in its infancy.
Anyone else have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I would say that it's not just Pokemon too. Now we don't deal in a lot of the gaming cards. We do some of them, but I think Pokemon is certainly out front right now. Magic the Gathering, I understand. Again, although we don't sell it, that's a huge market for gaming cards. And then there's another new one that's on the scene that's really making a lot of noise, called Flesh and Blood. So that segment of the market, gaming cards, is really intriguing to us right now as a retailer of cards.
Okay, so so there's about a minute left, so it's probably going to cut out. But the next topic is collecting and then flipping. So collectors and flippers. And I guess we can add in leaving for kids, which I know probably all of us have seen on Twitter. So just get your opinions on that.
Well, and you probably need to ask Ivan about what's happening with Top Shot, because as soon as that hits baseball and football, look out.
I think that's a whole other video. We don't even have time to go there.
All right, so just continue on talking about collecting, flippers, and leaving for kids. So if anyone wants to say anything about that. Any opinions on collecting versus flipper, and opinions on flippers, and then the whole notion of leaving for kids that people have argued about?
We see that a lot. I mean, it's become sort of a hobby joke, leave some for the kids. I mean, well, I'll say this. I mean, I come from a different perspective, obviously, we owning a card shop, but co-owners of the card shop are my two sons, who are ages 11 and 13. So as kids, they're in the hobby. They're very engaged in it from both a collector, investor, and sales standpoint. So they're heavily involved, as are many of their friends. And it's hard for retail stores to keep the shelves stocked, as we know. But one of the things that I know for sure is that there are products that you can come in and buy if you're a kid. We've got packs for $5. We've got packs for $7, for $8. None of those packs are out of the reach of a lot of kids. We also give away a lot of packs. Both Panini and Topps do giveaways, Player of the Day promotions or National Baseball Card Day promotions to engage kids. I know the Panini's working on a kids pack, or kids crate, I think that they're calling it, which is intriguing to me. So I really don't feel like kids are out of the hobby. Beyond that, we've got a room that has probably at this point over 500,000 singles, priced anywhere from $25 to $10. So kids can be in the hobby if they choose to be. They might not be in it at the Prison Basketball hobby box level necessarily, but they can collect and they can invest if they choose to. So the notion of leaving for the kids is kind of, to me, a bit of a joke as well, because there's product out there. You just got to find it.
I've gotten overly irate about this. because I care about children. I have some myself. But I'm so with you, Rex. One, there's product out there, and in my own experience, people say, "Well, big league is crap product." Look, I'm sorry, I'm doing this now in my late 30s. Whew, that just happened literally 2 weeks ago. I'm doing this now in my late 30s, and when I was a kid, we could not afford Upper Deck. Like, I was buying collector's choice. I was buying triple play. Well, now I'm in the hobby. I'm putting money back in the hobby now as an adult. In fact, maybe that's part of why I'm buying what I'm buying now, is because back then there were haves and have-nots, and I was one of the have-nots. So it's kind of fun now to be able to go out and buy $1,000 card, once a quarter or whatever my family will let me. So there is that side of it. The second side of it is there are a lot of kids with money now. We're in an unprecedented age of entrepreneurism. There's slime millionaires out there. There's this Ryan kid who is worth $25 million because of YouTube. The $1.8 million Giannis Antetokounmpo National Treasures 1 of 1 that sold for $1.8 million was sold by a kid who got it when he was like 13. And 4 years later, he's 17 and selling it. Like, there are a lot of kids in the hobby too. And I've also, not this past year, obviously, because of the pandemic, but at the National, if you go to the National 2 years ago, there were kids everywhere. And Panini's doing stuff for them at the National. Upper Deck and Tops, they're doing stuff for them at the National. Hobby shop owners, Rex, I'll bet you if you have a kid walk in, you give them a bit of a deal, right? Like,
absolutely. Well, the other thing is there's kids in here right now. You probably can hear them in the background, but there's definitely kids in here at the moment, and there's no shortage of kids coming in on any given day. I think it's an interesting dynamic, though, because from a collector standpoint, if you were a collector up until, I don't know, like pick a date, 3 years ago, the prices were, fairly steady and maybe kept up with inflation as normal goods were, any other, collectible or toy might out there on the market. You didn't see this insane uptick in prices. And it's been a culture shock to those people as adults who collected at a certain price point for a long time, and then all of a sudden saw this, rocket ship take off, and and feeling like they're priced out of the market. So that I understand, but I think that what we all have to take into account is that the dynamic has changed. It is a different hobby / investment / game now, if you will, and adults and kids and people at all price points are playing in it now. So you've got National Treasures, at the ultimate, high end, and you've got, like you say, opening day or big league baseball at the lower end. And I think every single one of those products plays a role. The challenges, of course, is that, when you do have something that's a popular release, or a flagship, such as Prism basketball or Prism football, that is very expensive, that tends to lead people to say we're getting priced out, and kids are getting priced out. But again, look at the singles market. There's a lot of rookies that you could buy Prism basketball from last year, for under $10 right now. If you really believe in a particular rookie, you can buy this Prism single. You can buy it. You don't have to buy the hobby box or the first off the line.
One of the things that drives me crazy, sorry, Andrew, I know you have children too, but it is this like, oh, box prices are so unreal. And it's like, look, getting to your earlier point about gambling, Rex, opening boxes has some nostalgia in the wax and the ripping, but it's gambling. The people that are gambling are creating supply for the kids to where it's never been easier to go out and get a rookie card of your favorite player.
Well, do you think buying a box is more gambling than buying individual players?
Oh, absolutely. Because like I said, the average return on a box is like 1/8 of the box price, so it's definitely gambling if you're talking about return versus buying singles, where at least you feel like you can keep an eye on the exact value of what you're acquiring. But that said, the amount of people buying boxes at that price means that if you're who'd you say your hockey team was again, or who are those players on the Maple Leafs, Justin?
Oh, Matthews, Marner, Nylander.
And who can't you afford from that? Matthews?
I would say Matthews is probably the most expensive, yeah.
Yeah, so guess what? You can go out and build an incredible Nylander PC because of all the singles that are out there from the people chasing Matthews.
Yeah. It's like I'm building a Kevin Biggio PC because nobody's buying Kevin Biggio because everyone's buying Bo. So I'm out there buying Biggio, Telez, Gurriel, even Vladdy's dropped down, but it's allowed me to go and get Kevin Biggio, who I'm super, super high on, and I think is going to be super underrated, and people are going to be, holy shit, why didn't we buy enough of him? And right now I'm buying his autos and relics at $25 to $30 a card. So
yeah. The other thing that's interesting too is I think, again, and everybody seems to have a complaint, no matter what you bring up, but the amount of cards for Kevin Biggio out there, the choice of cards, even amongst the rookies. I mean, how many different rookie cards does he have out there that you could collect? At least a dozen, it would be my guess. And probably more. And then he's got inserts and, second-year cards and so forth like that. So there's no shortage of availability of Kevin Biggio cards if that's who you decide to collect. And you could really pick pretty much any player across the major sports, and that would still be the case. If you're a true collector and that's what you want to do, it's never been easier to collect individual players, especially with the advent of the worldwide marketplaces of eBay and some of the other selling platforms that are out there. A Kevin Biggio rookie card is a click away.
Like what's going to be frustrating for me is going to be Bowman. Bowman, where Austin Martin is probably going to be the hot guy to get out of Bowman 2021 because he wasn't in the draft. So I don't know who else is there, but I know he'll be in it. And being a Blue Jay guy and knowing that, I think the top 4 guys ahead of him and I think the next 6 or 8 guys behind him were in Bowman draft, and he was one of the ones that was left out, almost like Bobby Witt the year prior. So that's one thing frustrating for me. To see like, oh shit, my guy is going to be harder to get, because if he was in this set, he wouldn't be as collectible as he would be in 2021 because he's, yeah.
Well, the last thing I would say about kids is that I think we would all agree that Topps sucks at marketing to kids, frankly. I think they suck at it. They could very, very easily market some of these Dominican players to the Spanish-speaking communities of the United States. They could do public service announcements. They could send free cards to schools and surround it with a public service message. They could be sending packs to little leagues. I mean, there's so many ways they could market. Mookie Betts should be the face of baseball. If Mike Trout's not good at it, then put Mookie in front. I mean, come on. It's just not that hard, but they don't do it for whatever reason because they're making a fortune selling to the collectors. But there's plenty of product out there. I don't know how long Big League sat on the shelf at my local card shop, probably all year long. And every time a kid came in there, they'd give them a free pack. I mean, but they're just not marketing where kids are. It's very frustrating to watch.
So the next topic, this is one that I know I want to get before Ivan leaves. It's the whole notion of comps. My opinion is the best way to see a comp is the auction route because ultimately that's what the price people will pay. And I get it. There's a whole thing of shill bidding, which is a whole issue in itself. But it's auction versus best offer, buy it now, comp notion. And then the other thing I want to discuss pretty quick, or one of the bigger things, is grading different companies. And from what I'm seeing, especially on Twitter, every single card is being graded. And it's like, to me, the only way people think they can make their money back is they have to grade every single thing. It's like, so, and as we know, the backup in PSA is ridiculous. But it's the whole people are losing money on boxes. So it's like they feel they have to grade to make that money back. So just the whole company, different companies, the grading aspect, people feeling like they have to grade to make their money back, and the whole notion of comps. What do you think is the best comp? To me, auction is the best way to go comps because that's what people are willing to pay. And that's kind of like bidding up. And if you're not willing to go, then you're not going to continue bidding. And then I know the whole shill billing issue.
And if I may add, because I love Rex and Ivan's opinion on this, because you guys have both been in the hobby a long time, it is astounding to me what has happened in the difference in prices between a 9.5 Beckett and a 10 PSA. I mean, it's really astounding what's happened in that world in the last 2 years. And it's remarkable. The difference now is incredible.
Yeah, just the whole grading notion, comps, and what your opinion is on comps. and different company and gradings, and the whole notion that everybody feels like they have to grade to make money back because you're not making money back on raw cards.
Well, one, that's not true at all. I literally sent my first submission in 4 years for grading this past month, and I've made plenty of money in raw cards. So I can tell you that idea is wrong. I specifically, Rex and I were actually talking about grading earlier today. So as the card shop owner who sees, do you actually group sub, Rex, for your?
We don't, and the reason why we don't right now is because we do not want to be the source of frustration for our customers that comes along with grading. So we'd like to offer that service at some point, but until the grading companies can really confidently tell us when our cards are coming back, I don't want to be that middleman for a customer and be their source of frustration, particularly with the modern market, the way the cards move. I mean, 6 months to a year is really a lifetime in the modern card market right now. And if people are really trying to make money off of grading their cards, they're not going to be able to do that as easily with PSA with the wait times that are there now.
I'm going off of like what I see on Twitter. Everyone's like, should I grade this? Would this grade well? Is this a good thing to grade? It's just everything I see is, should I grade this? Is this a good thing to grade? So in my head, it's like every other tweet I see is about grading. So it's like everybody to me seems to be grading their stuff, and then the backup at PSA. So that's why it's like, and I read somewhere where people are grading to make the money back, and you can't make money back with raw cards. So that's just. But as Ivan said,
well, yeah, as I would agree with Ivan too. But Justin, I think your point is well taken because there's a lot. Again, the grading companies are out there for anybody to use. So it's not up to me or anybody else, in my opinion, to tell people what they should or shouldn't grade. But I do see a lot of stuff that I personally would never send to grade. A lot of insert cards, a lot of second or third year cards. But a lot of people, if that's their personal collection, that's their right to do that. But I think the sense is
grading everything. Like, you think you're going to make money off everything that you're sending into grade?
Well, you're certainly not going to do it now with the price increases of PSA, and now, of course, today SGC price increases. So and that model becomes a lot more difficult with those prices, especially again with those lag times.
And also, while you're at it, the whole comp notion, and like, because to me it's like, yeah, people are showing comps, but comps are like, could be all over the place. I don't really like, to me it's best comp is auction and auction way instead of like the buy it nows. Or like, what are your opinions on this whole comp thing where it's like everything is like, oh yeah, I'm selling it at this, but and this is what the comp is. It's like, okay, so the comp is that, but that's not what I think. I think it's like kind of, this is what I think, because it's what I would pay.
Yeah. eBay is, eBay comps are the most widely accepted method to establish comps right now. So, it's not unreasonable to take the last 3 or 4 sold and just kind of get an average. But you do have to sort of, you have to be careful about the shill bidding and things like that you guys see. And it's really tough right now because you can't necessarily trust every single thing that comes off eBay, and that's one of eBay's flaws. Now you can go to 130point.com and you can see cards, where they have a best offer, where they actually sold, and that'll give you more of an accurate picture than just straight through eBay. But it's not a perfect science. And I think that what you have to consider in addition to comps, if you're trying to make money, is, what is your profit margin, your expected ROI, and what do you have in the card? It's not all just about comps, I think, when it comes to selling.
Well, the tool I use, Justin, is there's a website, Sports Card Investor, and they have a market movers data tool they use. This will weed out some of the shills and will also accumulate some of these best offer prices. And it's a subscription service, but anybody can join it. It's relatively inexpensive, and you can put in most of the major cards that somebody might collect and be able to see what's really going on there and get a statistical analysis if you really want to know.
Ivan?
Sorry, I always like to mute just to be safe on background noise. So I think like the bigger problem that I have in this maybe is like saying like comps. I think buyers and sellers recognize that that's their negotiating position. But this is the big thing that's different about this market than the stock market. In the stock market, you've got millions of transactions occurring on any given stock at any given time, or hundreds of thousands, don't quote me on the exact math. But here you've got maybe 10 eyes on a card at one time. So if no 10 are willing to pull the trigger at whatever the last comp was, you're not going to get the last comp. So you can't be rigid about it. But also, if you're not willing to sell for less, that's your prerogative as the seller. So, I don't know. I don't let it bother me when people say stuff, I guess. That's probably the biggest thing out of this whole thing is, I don't let stuff bother me because people are going to like what they want. They're going to claim what they want. They're going to, push what they like. And that's okay. It just means I don't have to buy it if I don't want it.
And then if anyone has anything else to add to that, if not, then it was the whole. I know Ivan, Ben Baller. I've seen your tweets about him, and I know you know him personally, right?
Yes, we have had the chance to meet
Okay,
on a
'cause I was
few
gonna say
occasions.
guys like Ben Baller, Vegas Dave, Gary V, Snoop Dogg. I've seen involved athletes. I've seen. You said Mark Cuban earlier. Aoki, we've seen involved in like the whole spike. Just your opinion on all these guys and promoting. Personally, I don't. My biggest issue is with Vegas Dave. I've tweeted about it. I just don't like. It's not really the card market aspect of it. It's more his sports betting aspect where I don't like him. But how do you feel with like how like with them in their position, what they're doing, and just thoughts on that? And how like that's affecting it. Do you like what they're doing? Do you have issues with it? And
Me specifically? Oh, go ahead,
anyone,
Rex. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in there. I mean, everybody, has an opinion on these guys. It seems like that's in it. But my opinion is probably no more or less valuable than theirs. What I do see is, and I think that's really my main point is to say is that these people that are involved in the hobby and these influencers, if you will, they're very high profile. They got a lot of followers on the social media and so forth. But in reality, their opinions are just that. And if they're giving opinions about cards to invest in or not invest in, I would just caution people to tread lightly, do their own research, and invest, number one, in what they like and what they believe in, and not really necessarily follow the hottest, latest celebrity that's out there promoting whatever they happen to be promoting. Gary Vee, I do follow his Instagram and Twitter, and I enjoy his content and so forth. But I certainly don't agree with all of his advice on everything, and I'm sure he wouldn't agree with me either. And that's just the way of the world. When you do see these guys tend to have an impact on the market, though, a lot of people get frustrated by that. But I think again, because of the hobby and the market as it is right now, I think that's just something that's unavoidable, and I think we have to understand it and live with it and adjust accordingly on our own.
Ivan and Andrew, then I just have two more topics to mention after this one. So Ivan and Andrew on this one, and then I'll go to the next two.
Go ahead, Ivan.
Okay. Well, so this is something I personally take seriously because I feel like I do have a responsibility myself not to promote things that I'm secretly holding. But obviously sometimes I'm holding stuff and I'm like, yeah, I like it. That's why I'm promoting it. Obviously I like it. I own it. I will say this fear that I hear about influencers pumping and dumping. One, I see it attributed to guys like Gary Vee, who showed up at the National, showed his cards, tells you what he's buying, shows his SGC grading reveal. And there are at least a few times when I've seen when he first tweeted about De'Aaron Fox Prisms, there was no movement on those. So everybody wants to say, oh, he's moving the market, and there was no movement on them. And he probably lost money if you look at De'Aaron Fox Prisms where they are today. So I think that surprisingly, probably get some heat for this. There's a lot more transparency, I think, in people that are out there talking about it daily than there was in the hobby 10 years ago. And I know people, and I won't say who they are, but I know people that have pumped and dumped inside the hobby 10 years ago. I know, of people who would like to still be doing it today. I know of mechanisms behind some of the media outlets. The flip side of that is I think Dr. James Beckett is a highly ethical person, personally, from everything I've heard, read, stories about him. Because of the fear of his possible influence, he used to have people go and buy for him. Because he knew if he walked into a card show in Dallas in 1984, when he was Dr. James Beckett and there was no one else in the hobby creating prices, and he started buying stuff, people would either, buy it and it would go up because, oh, Beckett's buying it, it must be good. Or they'd think that if he wrote about it or if his magazine wrote about it, it was him doing that. And it's like, he wants to collect too. Gary V wants to collect too, I firmly believe. So I don't know where the line is. I do think scrutiny is great. There should be scrutiny, but I hate when I see the scrutiny not come with data. Phil Hughes tweeted that he was buying Mbappe prisms back in, I think, August or September, and that day they shot up like 40%. That's data. Could be slightly off because I'm recalling.
Yeah, he was another actually influencer that I forgot to mention about.
Yeah.
Too.
But is that wrong? Is that right? I don't know. But let's look at the data. And, I appreciate him saying what he's buying. Assuming he's saying it when he's buying it and not saying it 2 weeks after he's bought 200 of them. I think that that's actually transparency. We're in the information age, and the more transparency we can get, the better. At least the more fair it is, more level the playing field is.
Andrew?
The only thing I would add to what's been said is that anytime somebody famous tweets about holding a baseball card or basketball card or football card, just provides credibility to the hobby and the market, especially those that display it as a piece of art to them, as something they really enjoy, as something they display and say and tell their friends, look what I have. I just love that. I think it really adds to the hobby. I think it gives young people somebody to look at and say, oh, they're doing it. This must be cool. This must be something I can enjoy as well.
Yeah, so that's going like with Phil Hughes. I don't know if you guys saw his video where he framed that Tatis Sapphire 1 of 1 in a special PSA thing. To me, I thought that was phenomenal because that's like a display in like that nice PSA case, hang on the wall. To me, I love that. And the fact that when he signed the cards for the archives and the Rip It card, and he said, if you get these certain cards, I will reward you with boxes. I thought that was phenomenal to do because that's a chase that everybody wants now. It's like a 1 in a million card that you're going to get, you can possibly pull, but you're dumping the money in to try to pull up, and he's rewarding you if you can. So I like those two aspects of what he's done.
Thank God he did that because his cards aren't worth shit. So he
cards
needed
are worth
to give us
$40, $50 now for doing that, though. I don't know if you've seen the eBay, but his cards have gone up to $30, $40 on eBay because of what he's doing. So the last two topics are just, do you guys like the price hike in PSA? Why do you think they did it? And then the other thing is, for me, on one of my frustrations on Twitter is seeing people being like, it's probably a joke and it's probably not, but is this a good poll? Should I grade this? Just like questioning, like, should I do something? Like, what should I collect? What is it that I should collect? In my head, I'm like, do your research, figure it out yourself. Why do you need people to tell you? People could be telling you wrong things. Me personally, when I was new about a year and a half ago, I didn't know what I was doing. I just focus on Blue Jay stuff. But if I pull something I don't know, I'm going to check eBay. It's not that hard to pick up a phone and do your own research on what the value is. So asking what the value is just like, what are you doing? Do your own research. And just your thoughts on opinion on so many people asking this and that, and then just the whole spike on, do you like the whole grading spike?
I'm okay with the price increase for both PSA and, of course, SGC now. I originally sort of I thought that there might be a scale, if you will, of of course, being a retailer, I look at things through a different viewpoint. But if you were thinking about grading companies, maybe on a scale of like retail stores from Dollar General all the way to Tiffany and Company, I feel like there's some opportunity, for a GMA at the Dollar General level, and also for PSA and, of course, BGS. Black labels, at the Tiffany and Company level. And I also think there's room for SGC, HGA, CSG, and any others that might want to come into the field, all at all levels in between there. And if they could carve out a niche, I think that this really helps the industry tremendously. PSA and SGC obviously went through some serious growing pains recently, and that caused them to drive these price increases. But it's kind of like the box prices and the wholesale distributors pricing. It's starting now to catch up to the hobby. I mean, it never really, if you think about it, did it really make sense that you could take a $5 top Series 1 base paper rookie, put it in a PSA holder as a 10 and get a 10x return on it? I mean, in 30 days, did that really make sense? So now the return is going to be somewhat less, and people have to be a little bit more careful about what they submit to them. So I'm okay with it, and I think there's room for all. And I'd like to see more graders come in, and I'd like to see some of them succeed. As far as your second point, one of the things I think we see with social media now is since there's been, the pandemic has caused a lot of people to stay inside. They're looking for that interaction that they would get at card shops and or card shows, which were shut down for so long and are just now coming back online. And I think that that's maybe what's driven a lot of that. Hey, what's my card worth, or should I grade this, and that sort of thing. People are just looking for interaction. That doesn't bother me a lot necessarily. So maybe there should be specific pages or something devoted to that if it clogs up selling pages or something like that. But it doesn't tend to bother me. I think people are just wanting to engage with others who are like-minded.
Ivan or Andrew?
Yeah, I would only add that it was a long time coming. They should have raised their prices a long time ago. I'm a free market guy. They need to raise their prices to the point where they can catch up. They can't hire enough people fast enough. They need to create a process where you can get these things done in a reasonable amount of time and know that the quality's there. And that's what's allowing these competitors to come in. We're just happy to watch, kind of the gold rush of the card industry right now, where there's a lot of people jumping in and they're making mistakes and there's different price levels, and that all needs to work itself out. And this is just a natural progression of that. And frankly, they're probably going to need to raise their prices again because this is probably not enough. So.
Ivan?
Yeah, I think that on my Thursday night show, Go GTS Live, which you can see on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, the last price increase, I think I said the same thing. I'm like, people are freaking out. I don't think this is enough. I don't think this is a big enough barrier of entry. And it turns out it wasn't, because there's always a point at which people don't have enough money. There's a economic thing called efficient market theory. And basically it's, you're not going to go to the store and pay $15 for a box of Count Chocula. If you went into the grocery store and it said Count Chocula, $15, you'd say, forget about it. But if you went in and it was $2, you'd buy all of it. And you'd go out on the street and start selling it for $4. So markets find balance. There's a place where people just aren't willing to open up their wallets anymore. And you got to find the right balance. This is such a new market, and we're seeing so much attention and interest, and we're seeing that what they'll pay on the secondary market continues to do this for the top of those cards. And so I think there is some trial and error figuring it out, but I am not upset about the price increase. Disclosure, someone will say it in the comments below. He just sent 240 cards in. Yeah, so I did get in before the price increase, so it's easy to not be upset about it. But at the same time, like SGC's announcement came just today.
With the price increase, would you be upset about it?
Well, I would have been more selective in what I sent. That's the bottom line.
Spending.
Yeah, because I sent like 20 cards Super Express, which was $150. Would I have sent all 20, or would I have maybe sent 10?
All right, and yeah, like I said, I agree. I don't mind the price spike. I personally think it's good, especially for PSA, because I think the price spike is more for people that said, oh, they're trying to make more money because they're seeing a lot more come in. I personally think they're doing it to prevent more from coming in so they can catch up. Do you think they're trying to make more, or it's probably a bit of both anyway, because people are always trying to make more money. But yeah, if they weren't getting as money in, would they have increased? So I guess it's a bit of both. Anyone want to add to that before I wrap it up?
Well, I would love to hear what you guys, why do you think there's such a price difference between BGS 9.5 and PSA 10? Is it just the market? That's just the way it goes?
PSA is a good brand. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish I could explain it to them all. 9.5 and 10, 9.5 BGS and PSA 10 used to be fairly equal. As late as I'd say a half a year ago, I mean, if you're looking at 6 months ago, you probably didn't see this gap that we're seeing right now. I've never been a huge BGS follower, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. The only thing I will say is this: I think the market's telling us they don't love the half point. And I feel like when you get a 9.5, whether it's a BGS or it's an SGC, when you get a 9.5, it almost feels like the Russian judge did you dirty. Does that make sense?
And PSA does half grades. They just don't do it until 8.5.
Right, that level.
What do you think, Ivan?
I mean, here's my biggest thing with all this is I actually like BGS slabs the best. I don't get offended by a 9.5. I just think that their customer service, their messaging, their story has gotten so lost. You know, I think it's on them what's happened in the market.
And I love subgrades. Subgrades is great, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we love the subgrades, but you know, PSA is never going to do that.
Yeah, I literally just think that Beckett Grading has completely dropped the ball on thinking they need to have a voice in the market. You know, we don't see emails from them. We don't see, you know, from their president. We don't see updates on where they're at. And people I know that have talked to them or tried to talk to them or submitted with them say it's really hard to get a hold of them on where they're at. PSA is super backlogged. And I've literally, again, just submitted with them for the first time in 6 years with them. Beckett was who I did 4 years ago. But the last year and a half, I've been getting emails from them saying, hey, here's what's going on. Steve Sloan putting his face and his name on them. And I've heard stories of, in a few cases where they've messed up, Steve Sloan reaching out, or their chief innovation officer reaching out and connecting collectors to Steve Sloan. I haven't heard any story like that with Beckett. I can't even tell you who Beckett's president is. I can tell you who the president of Eli Global is, and you don't want to hear that story.
All right, so yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna wrap it up. But I personally love the subgrades because it shows you everything about everything, more detail. So I love the subgrades. I do have a Vlad non-subgrade. I was thinking about resubmitting it for the subgrades or flipping it over to PSA. It is a personal item where I wouldn't be selling anyway. That's just my opinion on the subgrades, and I do like this price hike. So just to wrap it up, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Just a quick thanks to Andrew, Ivan, and Rex. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell button, and leave your comments on if you agreed with anything, disagreed with anything. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and